list the chemical element that make up carbohydrate, lipids, proteins, and DNA. So we will cover these four types of biological molecules. And the second learning outcome is that instead that large molecules are made from smaller molecules, and our discussion would be limited to starch, cellulose, and glycogen from glucose, and proteins from amino acids, lipids from fatty acids and glycerol, and DNA from nucleotides. Then describe and able to do chemical tests for starch by iodine solution, glucose and maltose by Benedict solution, protein by biuret test, and lipid by ethanol emulsion test. So they have specified what is our syllabus. So I'm going to start from here the different types of biological molecules which are important for uh, our food, for our life. So the first and the important molecule is carbohydrate. So the word carbohydrate, initially this word carbohydrate was derived from the chemical terminology hydrated carbon. Carbo came from carbon and hydrate means hydrated, because in most of the carbohydrate they found that the molecular formula of carbohydrate has hydrogen and oxygen in the simplest ratio as it is in water. What should be the simplest ratio? We can write it like this: CnH2O N. N can be any number. If N is 6, and the smallest value of N is 3, N is equal to or greater than 3. Okay. And the most common value of N is 6. So this is the formula of glucose, and some uh, other molecules also have the same formula, or sometime this value of N is 5. If N is 5, then the formula become, in this case, N is equal to 6. And if N is equal to 5, then the formula would be C5. And if it is 5, then 5 twos are 10 and O5. Okay, got it? So that's why they consider that carbohydrates are the hydrated carbon atoms. But later on, it was proven wrong, because another carbohydrate that is a part of DNA is having formula C5H10O4. And you can see here hydrogen and oxygen are not in the ratio of water. Okay, so actually when you will study chemistry, then you can understand it in more better way. But the name carbohydrate came from there. And today we know that there are different types of carbohydrates. Some carbohydrates are called which are which consist of single sugar units. Single sugar unit. And those carbohydrates which comprises single sugar units include ribose, and the most common is the glucose. And in DNA, we have deoxyribose. Deoxyribose. It is called C3. C3 means it has three carbon. Sorry, it is called C5 sugar because it has five carbon atoms. This is C6. It has six carbon atoms, and it is also C5. It has five carbon atoms. And another very important carbohydrate is it is also C6, and it is fructose. Okay. So these are different types of in our syllabus. We will cover only this in this chapter and in digestion as well and respiration as well. This is also the part of our syllabus and this is also the part of our syllabus, but fructose is not directly the part of our syllabus. And one more thing that we will cover is maltose, but maltose is not here. Maltose is another kind of carbohydrate which comprises two sugar units. Two sugar units. And the examples of two sugar units having carbohydrates are, and you know it, lactose. Where is lactose found? Do you know? Lactose
No.
is found in milk. Okay. Lactose in milk. Maltose. Maltose is obtained when we digest our carbohydrate. Okay. So after digestion, we get it. After digestion of starch. And the third one that is very important is sucrose. Sucrose can be obtained from beetroot or sugar cane. The table sugar is sucrose. This is the table sugar. Table sugar. Okay. And another class of carbohydrate is that comprises many sugar units. And these many means thousands of many sugar units. And this is the common examples are number one is starch. Starch that composed of large number of glucose units. Cellulose, it is also made up of large number of glucose units. Okay. And here glucose units in branch. Large number of glucose units unite together and branching is also there. Cellulose, it also comprises glucose units, but these are unbranched. So this kind of carbohydrate is unbranched. Remember that these are the single molecule. Okay. No branch is possible if only two molecules of sugar are united together through a covalent bond. And here another one is the glycogen. Glycogen, it is also composed of glucose units in branch. So it is also branched. But remember that this branching is very compact in glycogen. Okay, so this type of branch is compact as compared to starch. Okay, now see, any kind of carbohydrate, the elements which are present in carbohydrates are elements present in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. Three elements are common, and mainly these three elements are important. In all the carbohydrates, these three elements are present: hydrogen, carbon, so carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. If you see the formula of glucose, it is C6H12O6. So these three elements are present. Formula of ribose, as I have already mentioned, it is C5H10O5. Again, these three elements are present. In deoxyribose, C6H12, oh sorry, C5H10O4. And in fructose, it is again C6H12O6. So glucose and fructose have the same chemical formula. Lactose, maltose, and sucrose, all of them have the same molecular formula that comprises two sugar units. And their formula is C12H22O11. And it is same for all these three carbohydrate which comprises two sugar units. Okay, C12H22O11. Although the chemical formula is same, but these are the different molecules. Okay, and they have
Sir,
different taste. Yes.
do we have to memorize all these numbers?
No, no, this is not the part of our biology. Okay, but I'm telling you deliberately because of something that we will study in uh, digestive system. Okay, then you can understand in a better way. If you see, as I told you that fructose consists of having the formula C6H12O6. And one more thing that I should mention here is that lactose is a carbohydrate that is made up of glucose and galactose. And both of these have the same formula C6H12O6. But when they combine together, this is not the addition product. Have you seen? If two, see, the formula of glucose is C6H12O6 and galactose is also C6H12O6. Okay, if you add them, then it should be C12H24O12.
Sir, do we have to know all this?
No, actually, we will cover it in digestive system. Okay, during the digestion. Okay, so
Okay.
you just remember the name that lactose composed of these two sugar unit, glucose and galactose, and maltose consist of 2 glucose units. Maltose is made up of 2 glucose units. We should write arrow in this side that when two glucose and one galactose combine, they form lactose. And when 2 glucose units combine, they produce is maltose. Or in other words, you can say that maltose comprises 2 glucose units. And sucrose is made up of 1 glucose and 1 fructose. Okay. So actually, I'm covering some of the topic from the digestive system and the digestion in human being. Okay. So, but you just remember that there are 3 kinds of carbohydrates. One, those which consist of single unit, for example, ribose, glucose, deoxyribose, fructose, galactose. Okay. And some consist of 2 sugar units, which are lactose, maltose, and sucrose. And their composition, the two units in lactose are glucose and galactose. 2 units in maltose are both are glucose, and in sucrose, glucose and fructose. And here in starch, all of these 3, starch, cellulose, and glycogen, they consist of glucose. The sugar unit present in them is glucose. Okay. And all of these elements, all of these carbohydrates, whether it comprises many sugar units or it comprises 2 sugar units or they comprise a single sugar unit, they all contain these 3 elements. Okay. And remember that the ratio of carbon and oxygen is almost same. It is another important point. Okay. What to note? In carbohydrates, in carbohydrates, the ratio of carbon and oxygen is usually same. If you see all this formula, then you will find that if there is 12 carbon atom, so there are 11 almost same. And in these carbohydrate, they are same, except this deoxyribose. Okay. They all have the uh, same ratio. Carbon and oxygen has same ratio. Okay. But hydrogen is almost double in number as compared to oxygen. Okay. So if we summarize this, I will summarize in the end. Okay. There are several types of carbohydrates, and the most common that is in our diet is glucose, sucrose, lactose, not maltose. Okay. Lactose, sucrose, and these all starch and glycogen. Cellulose is important for cell wall of the cell. You know, in plant cells, cellulosic cell wall is there. Proteins. What are proteins? Proteins, for example, our hairs are protein, muscles are protein. We eat flesh, means gosht in Urdu. So it is protein. Egg white mainly comprises protein. Egg yolk also has protein. All the pulses have proteins. So these all are proteins, and proteins are made up of large number of amino acids, about 20 types of amino acid, about 20 types of amino acids. Amino acid is a chemical terminology, and I'm not going in detail of the structure of the amino acid. But remember that the elements present in elements in proteins are three elements are same as these were in our carbohydrates. That is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So these three elements are also important here. But the fourth element is also essential for proteins, that is nitrogen. Okay. All the amino acid must contain at least one nitrogen atom. Okay. All amino acids must contain at least one nitrogen. At least one nitrogen atom. So if I'm writing here at least one nitrogen atom, so actually some of the amino acid have more than one nitrogen atoms. Okay. And where these proteins are synthesized in our cell, as we have studied the topic cell, where we synthesize in our cells, any cell, either the plant cell, bacterial cell, or animal cell. In cells, proteins, yes, in cells, proteins are synthesized where? You tell me. Synthesized on ribosomes. Okay, got it? So every cell synthesizes its own
Mhm.
protein. So far, we have studied that proteins are made up of 20 types of amino acids, and elements in proteins are carbohydrate, hydrogen, and oxygen. And fourth important element is nitrogen. Although in some proteins, sulfur is also present, okay, but I'm not mentioning here. And amino acids, all the amino acids must contain at least one nitrogen atom. So there are some amino acids which may comprise uh, more than one nitrogen. Okay. So the last point that we have here is that in cells, proteins are synthesized on ribosomes. Okay. So why we need protein in our diet? Hmm? This is another important question. If our cells synthesize our own proteins, so why do we need
So what does it mean that the proteins are synthesized on ribosome?
Synthesize means manufacture. Okay. So why we need proteins in our diet? Actually, we need proteins to get essential amino acids amino acids by their digestion by their digestion. So we will study in process of digestion in digestive system in human nutrition that actually proteins are hydrolyzed to to provide us amino acids, and when these amino acids uh, are absorbed by different cells, so cells synthesize their own proteins. Okay, got it? Yes.
Sir,
Someone may have it.
also
Gigi.
enzymes are made up of this, right?
Yes, definitely. You are right. You are absolutely right. Okay. So now I'm also describing here importance of protein. Importance of proteins. Why do we need proteins? So number one, for structural purpose. Structural purpose. How? Because uh, we need proteins to build our muscles, bones, hair, okay, and so many so many other functions. And enzymes, another important function of protein is as enzyme. Almost all the enzymes are protein in nature, which catalyze certain reactions in our body, in cells. Number three, it is very important for our defense mechanism. They developed antibodies. Antibodies for defense and protection. How for protection? Actually, protection and defense are two different things that we will study later on in detail about the antibodies in the chapter of immunity. And protection means just like that proteins are protection means as here protect us from cold and hot, and nails protect our fingers. So and a protein on the skin protect us uh, different types of bacteria to enter. Okay. So structural purpose enzymes are also protein. Enzymatic proteins are there. Antibodies with defense proteins are there, and protection is also its function. And another important function that you will study and you know it are the transport proteins. You know one of the example of transport protein very well. So transport protein are responsible for transportation of certain material within the body. For example, hemoglobin for transfer of oxygen. Transferrin is one of the protein. You don't need to remember. It is for transfer of iron. And some of the proteins are very important in diagnosis of cardiovascular diseases. HDL and HDL, high density lipoproteins and low density lipoproteins. So these are responsible for transfer of something, some molecules. I have mentioned some of them, but you don't need to go in detail of the others. And another class of biological molecule is lipids. And in our syllabus, out of several lipids, we have only fats and oils. Okay. So uh, elements in these lipids are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But oxygen is in very small quantity. But oxygen is in a very low ratio. Okay. And what are the materials from which lipids are made of? I'm talking about fats and oils. Fats and oils are made of number one, fatty acids, and number two, glycerol. Glycerol is glycerine. Glycerine is actually its 5% solution. So these are the uh, two molecules which which are responsible for making fats and oils. So when we take fats, we need some essential fatty acids in our diet. So after digestion, fatty acid and glycerol is formed in our intestine that is absorbed through certain part of the small intestine and transported to their destination. Okay. An example of lipids, all types of fats, oils, ghee, butter. In egg yolk, there is large quantity of fats as well. Fats are also present in dry fruits, almond, walnut, and others. DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. And actually, DNA comprises three materials. Number one, deoxyribose sugar that we have seen in carbohydrate. Deoxyribose, a 5 carbon atom sugar, a 5 carbon atom sugar that we have already seen. Another important molecule is phosphoric acid molecule. Phosphoric acid that we will learn in inheritance as well. And it is written like this. Oxygen, phosphorus, oxygen with negative charge. If there is hydrogen, then no need to write the negative charge. Okay. We will discuss in detail in inheritance when we will study the structure of DNA. And 4 types of nucleotides. 4 types of nucleotides. And these 4 types of nucleotides are: number 1, adenine. Actually, adenine is a molecule which is present in one of the nucleotide. Guanine, thymine, and cytosine. This is the part of our syllabus, and we will see the detail in inheritance. Okay.
So
So
DNA is
yes,
made up of this.
yeah, exactly. And the elements present in DNA are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And also phosphorus is must. Okay. So 5 elements are present in DNA. Phosphorus, you can see here, a phosphoric acid molecule is important for every nucleotide. Okay. And I should write here 4 types of nitrogen bases. Nitrogen bases. DNA is composed of 4 types of nucleotides. Okay. And each nucleotide comprises these three chemicals. Okay. Deoxyribose, phosphoric acid, and any of these DNA. So what is the composition of nucleotide? Nucleotide, I should write each nucleotide is composed of one phosphate with phosphoric acid, one phosphoric acid, one deoxyribose sugar, one deoxyribose, and one nitrogen base. Okay. And these are the nitrogen bases: adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. So in some nucleotide, adenine is there. In some nucleotide, guanine is there. In some nucleotide, thymine is there. In some nucleotide, cytosine is there. And they combine together to produce this huge molecule that is called DNA. Okay. Now see, if we want to represent, a carbohydrate, for example, starch. So see the diagrammatic representation of different kinds of carbohydrates. So starch is like this. Suppose these units are sugar units. These are glucose. Okay. This each one is glucose. A long chain is running, and it has some branches. Okay. And you can see that branches are very far. And then cellulose. Cellulose is a linear molecule. It has no branch. We have seen in this. We have seen in the discussion. These circles are not oxygen. I'm just representing them with glucose. Okay. So there's no branching. And for glycogen, glycogen have branches, and there are many branches. For example, they are compactly branched. Branch points are very close to each other, and further branching is also possible. Okay. So they are compactly branched. So when digestion occurs, these bonds in between these sugar units, these are different sugar units. I should mention it as well. Each circle here, each circle represent a glucose. Okay, so you can see large number of sugar units are there in cellulose, starch, and glycogen. The main difference between glycogen and starch is that it is compactly branched. Okay, many branches are there, and even branches in branches. Okay, so these are the diagrammatic representation of starch, cellulose, and glycogen. And now see the diagrammatic representation of proteins. Okay, proteins. If you want to see protein, as we have already told, that proteins comprises different types of amino acid, and there are 20 types of amino acid. It is not necessary that all the 20 types are present in a single protein. There might be 9 types of amino acid, sometimes 12 types of amino acids, sometimes only 4 type, not 4 type, uh, 17 types of amino acids. So it is not essential that all the amino acids are present in all the proteins. Some amino acids are protein in some proteins and some are in other proteins. Okay. So that's why we should take a variety of proteins in our diet. And but important thing is that in egg and meat, all kinds of amino acids are there which are essential for taking in our diet. So these can be represented by different types of amino acids. For example, one of the amino acid I'm representing like a triangle. One is by circle. So two same amino acid can be together, and one is represented by this one, and this triangle is repeating here. I can represent some of them by a hexagonal shape.
And can this be branched?
No, there's no branch, no branching in protein. Okay. So different types of amino acids are there, and there are certain bonds in between these amino acids. So these are different kinds of amino acids. Amino acids. And the bond between these amino acids are called peptide bond. What is their name? Peptide bond. So these all are peptide bonds. ये भी peptide bond है. All of these are peptide bonds, which are joining amino acids. Okay. So during digestion, these bonds are broken down. Okay. And now come to glycerol. Not glycerol. Come to fats. Fats. Suppose this is a glycerol molecule, and this glycerol molecule is linked with chains of fatty acids. Okay. So there are several ways we can represent them. So these are fatty acids. Fatty acids. These whole orange zigzag line is fatty acid. These fatty acid can be same or can be different. And this one is a glycerol molecule. Okay. Any problem here? Hmm?
So what
The
is this?
last one is
Last one में क्या हो गया?
for lipids. पूरा मतलब.
Yes. It is fat. Yo, I forgot to write the name. Fats and oils. And remember that these fatty acid can be different or can be same. Okay. So that's all for today. Hopefully you will understand it. And the topic that I left about biochemical test, I will provide you some video lectures, then we will discuss it. Okay.